Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I continue bringing you the next episode in the story of Tien and Jack. After the memorable seaside trip of Mother Loy and Uncle Dung, life at the farm gradually returned to the familiar rhythm that everyone had always loved. Peaceful days followed one after another, gentle and calm, just like the quiet countryside where they lived. Mornings at the farm always began very early. When the sun slowly rose behind the distant rows of trees, the whole garden was already filled with the soft light of a new day. Birds sang cheerfully among the branches, blending with the gentle breeze that moved through the green vegetable beds growing stronger each day. The fresh morning air made anyone who woke up feel lighter and more relaxed. Tien was usually the earliest to wake up in the house. She was used to stepping into the garden while the morning dew still clung to the leaves. Walking slowly along each row of vegetables, she checked which plants needed more water and which ones needed old leaves trimmed away. These small tasks had become a familiar part of her life since she came to live at the farm. After finishing in the garden, Tien would return to the kitchen to prepare breakfast for the whole family. The small kitchen was always filled with the comforting smell of warm food every morning. Sometimes it was a simple bowl of porridge, other times a few light dishes, but everything was prepared with her care and affection. Meanwhile, Jack continued his work at the company as usual. Although his work was sometimes quite busy, he always tried to arrange his schedule so he could return home as early as possible. For Jack, after a long day of work, coming back to the farm and sitting at the dining table with the people he loved was the most peaceful moment of his day. Mother Loy and Uncle Dung also gradually grew accustomed to the calm life there. After so many years of changes and challenges, living in the quiet atmosphere of the farm made them feel much more relaxed. In the mornings they often walked out to the garden together. Sometimes they helped Tien water the plants, and sometimes they simply walked around the land, chatting about everyday things. Because of that, family meals were always filled with laughter. There was nothing extravagant or complicated, just simple dishes placed on the familiar wooden table. Yet in those moments, everyone could clearly feel the warmth of a true family. Time passed gently in that rare peace. One afternoon, when the soft golden sunlight covered the garden, the entire farm seemed to sink into a quiet and peaceful atmosphere. The last rays of sunlight filtered through the branches of the trees, creating soft patches of light on the ground. The breeze moved gently through the trees, bringing with it the calm feeling of a peaceful afternoon. At that moment, Jack and Tien were sitting under the porch of the house. From there they could look out toward the distant fields stretching under the fading sunlight. Neither of them spoke much. They simply sat quietly beside each other, enjoying the rare peaceful moment after a long day of work. For both of them, moments like this were always very special. After everything that had happened in the past, being able to sit together in such a calm afternoon had become something truly precious. After a while, Jack turned slightly and looked at Tien. His eyes carried a clear sense of tenderness. Gently, he reached out and held her hand, his warm fingers lightly squeezing hers as if he wanted to express something important. Tien was a little surprised by the gesture. She turned toward him with a curious look. In the quiet atmosphere of the afternoon, Jack spoke softly, his voice calm but clear. "We should have our wedding." His words made Tien pause for a moment. Even though they had been together for quite a long time, had gone through many challenges, and had always considered each other an essential part of their lives, they had never actually held a real wedding ceremony. Perhaps in the past, life had been filled with unexpected events that left them little time to think about it. But now, when everything had finally begun to settle down, Jack's words made her heart quietly tremble. She looked at him for a long moment, emotion clearly reflected in her eyes. "Are you sure?" she asked softly. Jack smiled gently. It was not a big smile, but it was sincere. "After everything we've been through," he said slowly, "I just want to give you a complete wedding." It was not just a promise, it was a wish coming straight from his heart. Jack knew that Tien had always been beside him during the hardest times, helping him overcome many challenges. Because of that, he wanted to give her a meaningful moment, a simple but complete wedding. Hearing those words, Tien lowered her head slightly, a soft smile appearing on her face. Many emotions rose quietly in her heart. There was a little nervousness, a little shyness, but above all there was happiness slowly spreading within her. She gently nodded. Just a small nod, but for Jack it was the clearest answer he needed. The atmosphere of that afternoon suddenly felt warmer. The two of them continued sitting together under the porch, watching the sunlight slowly disappear beyond the horizon. But in their hearts, they had already begun imagining a new chapter that was about to come into their lives. When Mother Loy heard that Jack and Tien had decided to organize a wedding, she was the happiest of all. As soon as Jack shared his plan, she could not hide the bright smile on her face. "Finally, the two of you have decided," she said with excitement. In Mother Loy's heart, Jack and Tien had long been like a real couple in the family. So when she heard the news that they wanted to have a wedding, she felt incredibly happy. She immediately said that everything should be prepared carefully this time. It did not need to be a big or crowded celebration, but everything should be warm and meaningful so that their special day would become a beautiful memory. Uncle Dung, standing nearby, nodded with a smile. He believed that a simple wedding right there at the farm would be the most suitable choice. The place had witnessed so many memories of the family, so holding the ceremony there would make it even more meaningful. And when Jack and Tien saw how happy Mother Loy and Uncle Dung were, they also felt warmth spreading through their hearts. Perhaps the greatest happiness was not only the wedding itself, but the fact that their loved ones were always there beside them, sharing the joy. And from that moment on, a new plan for the special day of Jack and Tien slowly began to take shape, as everyone together prepared for it with excitement and anticipation. Uncle Dung also enthusiastically joined in preparing everything for Jack and Tien's wedding. From the moment he heard that the two of them had decided to hold the ceremony at the farm, he became extremely excited. Although he kept saying that he was only helping for fun, in reality Uncle Dung was involved in almost every small task. He even joked cheerfully that this time he would take on the role of the family's head of logistics, handling the heavier work and arranging everything neatly so that Jack and Tien's wedding would become a truly memorable event. Whenever he said that, Uncle Dung would laugh heartily, making the atmosphere in the house even more lively. Hearing him say that, Mother Loy could only smile, sometimes teasing him that he might be joking but would end up doing the work seriously anyway. Yet those playful conversations made everyone in the house feel warm and happy. No one felt tired, because everyone understood that they were preparing together for a very special day for the family. From that day on, the whole family entered a new period of busyness, but it was a joyful kind of busyness. It was no longer about worries or pressure, but simply about preparing for a happy occasion. Everyone had their own task, and each person tried to contribute a small part to make Jack and Tien's wedding as complete and meaningful as possible. Tien was very clear about what she wanted. She did not want a wedding that was too big or overly luxurious. What she wished for was simply a warm and intimate ceremony held right at the farm, a place filled with so many memories for the two of them. The farm was not just where they lived, it was also where many important moments in their lives had taken place. Because of that, when the preparations began, Tien and Mother Loy spent a lot of time decorating the garden in front of the house. Together they discussed where the lights should be hung and where the flowers should be placed so that the space would look beautiful while still keeping the natural feeling of the farm. Small golden string lights were hung along the rows of trees, and when they were turned on at night, their soft glow would create a warm and welcoming atmosphere. In addition, Tien prepared small baskets of flowers to place along the path leading into the yard. The colorful flowers were arranged neatly, not overly elaborate, but they brought a fresh and gentle feeling to the space. At the front of the yard, where the ceremony would take place, she and Mother Loy built a simple floral arch. It was not a grand wedding gate like those seen at luxurious ceremonies, just a small arch decorated with carefully arranged flowers, yet it carried a natural and heartfelt beauty. Meanwhile, Jack was far from idle. He spent time preparing a small stage in the open yard in front of the house. The stage was simple but sturdy, just large enough so that everyone could stand and clearly see the ceremony. He also worked with Uncle Dung to arrange the tables and chairs for the guests, checking each table and chair to make sure everything was neatly placed. Small dining tables were arranged around the yard, covered with clean tablecloths and decorated with a few small flower vases. Altogether, it created a space that felt both elegant and warm, while still preserving the familiar charm of the farm. The guest list was not very long. Jack and Tien invited only those who were truly close to them. There were a few of Jack's longtime friends, neighbors who had been connected to the family for many years, and several people who had always cared deeply for the two of him. Because of that, although the wedding was not large, the atmosphere felt incredibly intimate. After many days of preparation, the wedding day finally arrived. That afternoon, the farm seemed more radiant than ever before. As the sunlight gradually softened, the golden string lights began to glow. Hanging along the trees, the lights cast a warm brightness across the garden, giving the entire place a completely new look. Flowers were placed along the walkway, on the dining tables, and around the stage area. Their petals moved gently in the afternoon breeze, creating a scene that was both simple and deeply touching. Without needing elaborate decorations, the farm that day became a truly special place, thanks to the many thoughtful details that had been carefully prepared. As the guests gradually arrived, many of them could not hide their surprise at the warm and beautiful setting. Everyone could feel that this wedding was not meant to impress with grandeur, but was a ceremony prepared with the sincere love of the entire family. While people chatted and waited for the ceremony to begin, Tien appeared. She wore a wedding dress that was simple yet graceful. The dress was not overly luxurious, but it was elegant and refined. The white fabric stood out softly under the golden lights of the evening, making her look both gentle and radiant. When Tien stepped forward, everyone present could not hide their emotion. All eyes turned toward her, filled with admiration and joy for the bride on her special day. Jack stood near the floral arch where the ceremony would take place. The moment he saw Tien appear at the entrance of the path, his eyes immediately followed her every step. In his gaze there was not only happiness, but also a deep emotion that he quietly held inside. In that moment, everything around them seemed to grow still. The voices of the guests faded into silence, leaving only their attention focused on the bride walking slowly forward. At that instant, Jack suddenly remembered all the paths the two of them had walked together. The difficulties, the challenges, the moments when everything had seemed too heavy, those memories were now part of the past. What remained before him now was simply the image of Tien walking closer, a gentle smile on her lips and happiness shining in her eyes. When Tien finally stood before Jack, he gently reached out and held her hand. Their hands closed together softly, as if to fully feel the importance of that moment. The moment Jack took Tien's hand, applause filled the yard. Everyone attending the ceremony smiled and offered their blessings. The atmosphere became lively, yet still deeply emotional. Mother Loy stood beside Uncle Dung, quietly watching the scene before her. In her eyes were clear joy and pride. She had witnessed Jack and Tien's journey from the very beginning, so seeing them standing together on this day moved her deeply. She softly said to Uncle Dung, her voice gentle but filled with emotion, "Finally, the two of them have this day." Uncle Dung smiled and nodded beside her. In his eyes there was also a clear sense of happiness as he watched the young couple finally holding hands and stepping together into a new chapter of their lives. After everyone's heartfelt blessings, the atmosphere in the garden seemed to quiet down for a few brief seconds, as if all were waiting for the next important moment of the ceremony. Under the soft golden lights hanging along the rows of trees, Jack gently reached for the wedding ring that had been prepared earlier. He looked at Tutien for a moment, his eyes warm yet filled with emotion. In that instant, everything around them seemed to grow very still. There was only the gentle glow of the garden lights, the soft breeze moving through the leaves, and the many eyes watching the couple with sincere blessings. Jack gently took Tutien's hand. Her hand trembled slightly with emotion, but her eyes shone with unmistakable happiness. Slowly and carefully, he slipped the wedding ring onto her finger, each movement deliberate, as if he wanted to preserve every second of that special moment. Tutien looked at Jack, her eyes glistening with emotion. The warm glow of the string lights reflected in her eyes, making the moment feel even more tender and heartfelt. She said nothing, only smiled softly, but that smile expressed all the happiness she felt inside. The moment the ring was placed on her finger, applause erupted throughout the yard. The sound of clapping echoed everywhere, mixed with cheerful congratulations from the guests present at the ceremony. The garden instantly became livelier and warmer than ever. Everyone smiled as they looked at the couple, sharing the joy of that special moment. Simple but heartfelt words of blessing came from all directions, filling the ceremony with emotion. After the main ceremony, the small family celebration began in a joyful and intimate atmosphere. The long tables that had been arranged earlier in the farmyard gradually filled with relatives and close friends. Everyone sat together, enjoying simple dishes while chatting happily. Laughter echoed across the garden. Stories were shared, and warm congratulations were offered to the bride and groom, making the evening truly unforgettable. Under the golden lights, everyone seemed to feel even closer to one another. Jack and Tutien walked from table to table, thanking each guest for coming to celebrate their special day. Every time they stopped, more good wishes were shared, along with warm handshakes and sincere smiles that made them feel deeply touched. At a table near the front, Mother Loy and Uncle Dung were also sitting among the guests. When Jack and Tutien approached, Mother Loy gently stood up. On her face was the familiar kind smile, but her eyes clearly showed deep emotion. Uncle Dung stood beside her as well, holding a glass of water in his hand. He looked at Jack and Tutien with a gentle and affectionate gaze. Mother Loy raised her glass and spoke softly, her voice filled with warmth. "As long as the two of you always love and protect each other, that's all I need to feel at peace." Her words were not long, yet they made the surrounding atmosphere grow quiet for a few seconds. It was not only a blessing, but also all the love and trust she had for them. Hearing those words, Tutien could not hide her emotion. She nodded gently, her eyes slightly red. The feelings inside her heart seemed to overflow at that moment. Standing beside her, Jack gently squeezed her hand as if to comfort her and share the emotion of that moment. Together they looked at Mother Loy and Uncle Dung with deep gratitude in their hearts. Soon after, everyone raised their glasses in celebration. The sound of glasses clinking echoed throughout the garden, blending with the cheerful laughter of the evening gathering. Tutien quietly looked around. She gazed at the familiar garden, the place that had been part of her and Jack's life for such a long time. The rows of trees still stood there, the vegetable beds remained lush and green under the gentle golden lights. The familiar scene now felt more special than ever. Golden lights sparkled along the trees, small baskets of flowers decorated the walkway, and the laughter of friends and family filled the yard, everything blended together to create a warm and beautiful scene. In that moment, Tien clearly felt happiness spreading through her heart. After all the storms she and Jack had endured, after the many challenges that had once required them to fight so hard to overcome, they were finally standing together on the happiest day of their lives. It was not a large wedding. There were no complicated rituals or luxurious celebrations. Just a simple ceremony held at the familiar farm, where their closest loved ones gathered together to share joy on a warm evening. Yet it was precisely that simplicity that made the wedding even more special. Because within every glance, every smile, and every blessing was sincere love and heartfelt affection for the two of them. Jack glanced softly at Tien. She looked back at him, a gentle smile appearing on her face. Without needing to say anything more, both of them understood that from this moment on, their lives had entered a new chapter. A chapter they would walk together. A chapter where they would share happiness, support one another, and face any challenges side by side. And from that moment, a new journey officially began. It was the journey of a truly complete family, where love, understanding, and the simple joys of life would remain together, just as they had always protected and cherished every day.
Hello mọi người, hôm nay thì mình vừa làm xong một video. Hôm nay thì là nói về đám cưới của Tử Tiên và Giác như mọi người. Thì Tử Tiên và Giác như mọi người cũng đã theo dõi từ lâu, thì họ đã trải qua rất là nhiều khó khăn với nhau, cũng như là ở bên nhau rất là lâu, thậm chí đã chuyển về sống chung với nhau, nhưng thực sự thì chưa có một đám cưới nào diễn ra cả. Và video hôm nay nói về đám cưới của hai người, và cả hai đã hạnh phúc và trọn vẹn trong ngày đám cưới. Vậy thì bạn có cảm nhận như thế nào về tập phim hôm nay? Bạn hãy để lại những lời chúc phúc cho Tử Tiên và Giáp nhé, cũng như hãy like video này để có thể ủng hộ cho mình để làm ra những video tiếp theo nhé. Cảm ơn bạn rất nhiều. Hẹn gặp lại bạn trong những video tiếp theo. Đừng quên đăng ký kênh của mình, bật chuông thông báo lên để không bỏ lỡ bất kỳ video nào nha. Tạm biệt.